Hello, record and gear nerds of the internet. Today we're going to do a head-to-head competition between the AT33Sa and the Denon DL103 Phono cartridges. Let's talk about it.
In the morning.
Okay, so this isn't exactly a fair comparison here because this is, for all intents and purposes, an $800 Phono cartridge, and this is a $230 Phono cartridge. So this isn't exactly a stock Denon DL103. This is a 103 that has been retipped and modified by VAS out of New Jersey. And so what they do to this thing is they retip it, obviously. And then they also add this weight to the top of it. So now you have a heavier cartridge than just this plastic one. So it makes it a little bit easier to set up and adds a little bit more weight, which should add a little bit more to the sound. Similar to the way like Zoo and other people remove this plastic casing and put on a metal casing. Does that make a huge difference? I don't know. I don't have one to compare. But it sounds nice. Does it sound as nice as that? No, unfortunately not. So let's talk about the sonic differences between the two, because as you might expect, there are some pretty significant sonic differences. I mean, even before you start talking about the sonic differences, this is a pretty big cartridge, and it's small compared to this thing. This thing is a monster-sized cartridge. But sonically, so this guy, the AT33Sa, that's Shibata, that's the type of the stylus that's on there. There are no unpleasant frequencies from top to bottom. Everything sounds smooth. Everything sounds nice. Nothing is overpowered. Some people might find it a little bit dark, and that's probably going to be system dependent. I don't find it dark. I find it just right. Compared to the Denon, I would say that this seems a little bit bass shy. So it's not exactly the most balanced thing ever. The highs and the mids can get a little grainy, which, you know, again, that's going to be system dependent. Some systems have a brighter sound signature than others. Or if you might have a dark sounding system, maybe this is the one for you more than that. So I haven't really found a genre of music that this thing doesn't do well. Whereas this, you know, obviously with the lack of bass, there's going to be certain genres where it's not going to sound as good, you know, electronic, hip-hop, some rock. You're probably going to want a subwoofer with this guy. Not necessarily required for that one. I mean, nothing's required for anything, quite frankly. So then the 33 seems to go a little bit deeper into the music. The sound and music envelops you more. It seems like you're hearing more information, which makes sense because that Shibata stylus is known for really high detail retrieval, whereas this is just an elliptical where, you know, it's good, but it's not quite that. So here's another interesting thing. I find that this one, I don't know if it's the Shibata stylus or if this just inherently increases the frequencies where surface noise sits at, but with this, and you're going to hear this in the clip that I post at the end of this, this guy sort of mitigates the surface noise factor quite a bit, I found. Whereas this, I don't know if it pronounces it or it doesn't hide it as well. Hard to say. But you can definitely hear the difference in the noise floors on these. This one is way harder to set up. Watching my review of this thing, it's really a pain in the butt. This whole this AT33 sort of body, I am not a fan of it at all in terms of setting it up. It is a real pain in the butt. This one is super easy to install and set up and configure and align. It's just a big brick. You can see that, you know, there isn't too much space between the end of the cartridge body and the end of the cantilever, whereas I don't know if this one's going to show as well. So there is quite a big space between the end of the cantilever and the end of the cartridge body on this one, which makes it extremely, extremely difficult to configure on your and align on your turntable. It's a nightmare, not gonna lie. It is not the easiest thing ever. Let's see, so which would I buy? I mean, I'm gonna link to the eBay store of VAS where you can buy this thing for like 100 or 230 bucks shipped. I find that that's actually a really good deal. If you know what you're looking at going in, if you know it's going to be a little bit low on bass, and you know it's going to be a little bit bright, and your system, that's what you either want to hear or that's what your system calls for, then by all means get that. If you have a brighter system and you want to make a little bit darker, I would probably go with this guy. This is the AT33Sa made by Audio Technica. It's a darker sounding cartridge. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, maybe like 50 bucks. But it's a smoother, darker cartridge than this is. If you want something more revealing, I would go with that. I mean, I might be happy with this thing if I never heard that thing, which, you know, sort of, I feel like there's some sort of parable or story about, you know, being happy with what you have, because, you know, you can't unhear that after you hear it and you compare it, and there's a pretty big difference. And if you listen to the end, you're going to hear the differences, and they're pretty, I mean, some people might say they're not that big. I mean, this is more than 3 times the price of this, so I can see where people would say, yeah, well, this is a deal. That's not so much of a deal. I do think that, I mean, for 800 bucks, you're definitely getting $800 worth of sound quality increase on that. I mean, people will throw $2,000 at a preamp, so that'll make less of a difference between, you know, this and a lesser cartridge. That being said, this isn't a one-time purchase, unfortunately. This is essentially like a consumable. This is like the tires to your car. Eventually, they're going to have to be replaced, which kind of stinks, right? Like, you pay $800 for something, you want it to last forever, and it's not going to. You're either going to have to replace it or retip it at some point. That, for me, for 200 bucks, I can stomach that cost every couple of years more than $800. But that's going to be very dependent on the person. So you're going to hear some clips at the end of this. Tell me what you think. See if you would. I mean, to me, the difference is huge. Like, that thing has more resolution, that has less surface noise, that has a more low end, that has more information than this. But then again, this is a lot less expensive than that. So you get what you pay for sometimes, and this is one of those instances. I will say this is a very fine sounding cartridge for the money. Let me know what you think. Okay, so today's needle drops are going to be from Tommy Guerrero. This is from his album Sunshine Radio. This is an exclusive color that 123 Go out of San Francisco put out. I think this is still available, so go buy this, guys. I'll link it below. Tommy Guerrero is, or was, I guess he's no longer, right? A member of the Bones Brigade. He was an innovator of street skating back in San Francisco back in the 80s. He was in some punk bands like Free Beer, and then he started doing his own sort of interesting music, sort of jazzy, sort of funky, sort of Latin. I don't know how else to describe it. So he's actually the person who got me thinking that maybe I could get into jazz, because he does do a lot of jazz stuff. This is on, this nice color of vinyl. And if it sounds cool, go check it out. I wouldn't say this is his best album, but it's good. And you can get this limited of 500. And I don't know how many they have left. But if it sounds cool, go buy it. And then buy his other albums because they're all pretty good. All right, dropping those needles.